Football is back with all the pomp and pageantry you'll only find in Academy football. For the Black Knights, a dominant ground attack to avenge that 2019 loss.
It just makes such a difference when a team can win a game to start the season.
Air Force found its footing and mostly rested its wings as it soared to victory over Lafayette, an FBS school. But what does a win over the Leopards really say about the Falcons?
We'll get better.
The Coast Guard Bears were able to celebrate a shutout and their first win under head coach C.C. Grant.
I said, the key to us winning this game is that we're going to make a lot of mistakes and that we're going to have to be able to play through and compensate for those mistakes that we made.
And while Navy dominated time of possession, their rushing game of almost 400 yards was stopped by a blockade in the red zone.
That was a punch in the face, man. And just that was hard. It was hard to take that.
It was a weekend of strong wins, offensive and defensive dominance, a weekend of commanding victories and heart-wrenching defeats, of amazing catches, but not always by an Academy football team. It's time to break it all down on this week's edition of Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report. We had a full week of Academy football to kick off the season last week. Now it's time to move on to week 2 and what promises to be an emotional rivalry matchup between Air Force and Navy in recognition of the 9/11 attacks in New York and at the Pentagon 20 years ago. Those attacks led America into war, a war which cost the lives of some Academy football players once their military service began, and we'll pay tribute to them and to all the other victims who lost their lives either on 9/11 or as a result of 9/11 later in this show. But first, let's recap the action last week. And we begin with Army. The Black Knights started their campaign for a repeat Commander-in-Chief's title run with a convincing victory against Georgia State, avenging a 2019 loss, and giving head coach Jeff Monken his 50th win at the helm. Here's Aaron Summers.
The Black Knights were firing on all cylinders as they opened their season with a 43-10 win at Georgia State. After a preseason quarterback battle, it was sophomore Tyheer Tyler who earned the start, taking the Black Knights to an early 14-0 lead.
Tyheer was playing really well. He was running the ball really hard, doing a nice job with his reads, distributing the ball where it needed to be, and took care of it.
After Tyler was sidelined with a lower leg strain, Christian Anderson took over. A handoff to running back Jacoby Buchanan marked Army's third straight touchdown, the first time Army has scored on their first 3 drives of a game since 2013. Overall, the offense amassed 356 yards, 258 coming on the ground.
We've been practicing for this since August, so it's good to just see it manifest into a win. Against any team. We're always grateful to get a win, and I'm proud of my guys for all the work they put in and executing.
As well as the Army offense executed, the defense, the nation's top in 2020, looked even better.
They played their butts off, and Nate Woody's an outstanding football coach, and he had them in position. But the bottom line is the players got to go make the plays, and they did. And I thought it was a great effort on their part.
The Black Knights held the Panthers, who averaged 424 yards per game last season, to just 177 total. Army capitalized on 2 turnovers, 1 a key interception by corner Jabari Moore just before halftime that set up an Anderson touchdown and made it 27-7 Army at the half. Linebacker Andre Carter led the team with 3 tackles for a loss.
One of our things we try to do is run the ball and stop the run. So anytime we can do that and get a victory, it's a good day.
Up next, the Black Knights welcome fans back to Michie Stadium as they host Western Kentucky Saturday. The Hilltoppers are coming off a 59-21 win over UT Martin, in which quarterback Bailey Zappi threw for 424 yards and 7 touchdowns.
They are a very explosive offensive football team, and what they're doing with the football is it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's not going to be very much fun to defend.
Regardless of the status of Army quarterback Tyheer Tyler, with 4 different Black Knights getting time under center last week, look for multiple players to rotate in at quarterback again this week against Western Kentucky. Graham?
And talk about an equal opportunity offense. 6 different Black Knights scored touchdowns against Georgia State. That's balance. Thanks, Aaron. For their part, the Air Force Falcons got off to a fast start on the season with a convincing 35-14 win over Lafayette College. Coach Troy Calhoun was a bit worried about the youth of his ball club, but those concerns were eased a bit by the end of the first quarter when his team jumped out to a 14-point first quarter lead.
Daniels comes out from center, works to the left, has the first down, cuts back to the 15 and the 10, and now out of bounds.
Junior quarterback Hazik Daniels was the conductor for a high-flying Falcons offense that put up 370 yards on the ground. Daniels scored 3 rushing touchdowns for the win, but Air Force had a Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside approach to its ground game. Junior fullback Brad Roberts led the way with 111 yards on 25 carries, but it was sophomore wideout Micah Davis who ran for 101 yards on 4 touches, had 2 touchdowns that gave the Falcons the edge and the win, and his teammates couldn't have been happier.
Yes, so we see it at practice all the time. He's a really good player. He's really athletic, and so this is only a matter of time where he got his opportunity to make plays and stuff like that.
Davis added 2 catches on the day for 27 yards, and the Falcons' defense was stout, holding the Leopards to under 300 yards total offense and badgering Lafayette quarterback Aaron Angelos all day long. For Troy Calhoun, it was not only a win, but a chance to get some young players some real-time reps.
It's good for him to play. I think you do as much as you can trying to resemble and rehearse what a game's going to be like, but to be able to experience football on game day, it is, for those guys, just being able to draw from any experience they possibly can.
Next up for Air Force will be Navy in what will most certainly be an emotionally charged game, due in part to the 20th anniversary of 9/11. For their part, Navy has to get over a game of missed opportunities in a 49-7 loss to Marshall in their season opener. Diane Roberts has more on another disappointing start to the season for the midshipmen.
Graham, Navy head coach Ken Niumatalolo said leading up to the Marshall game, he felt different, that this season was different. He felt good about the team. They were very physical. They got to practice in person. All of this is very different than last year where they had the shadow of COVID weighing heavily over them. Unfortunately, the 2021 season started the same way the 2020 season did, with a lopsided loss. It took about 2.5 minutes for the thundering herd of Marshall to ram its way to a score. Just 9 plays for 75 yards through the midshipman defense and into the end zone.
No excuses. We were prepared. They looked like we were prepared, having penalties to start drives. Just very inexplicable things. Delay game, kicks blocked, as worse as we've done in special teams in a long time.
Navy's offense was effective, just not efficient, racking up nearly 400 yards of total offense, but stalling when it counted in the red zone. They were just 1 for 5.
Not scoring in the red zone just killed us. That just killed us.
On offense, you got to make plays. I Navy got to make plays, so you just got to make plays for the most of it. If you don't, obviously, this is the result.
Co-captain Michael Cooper knows there were opportunities. In Navy's first possession of the game, on 4th down and 4 near midfield, quarterback Ty Levitai hit a wide-open Cooper who dropped the ball. Other gifts the Middies just couldn't capitalize on included 3 Marshall turnovers that led to 0 Navy points. Co-captain and linebacker Diego Fagot was uncharacteristically short on words about the game's outcome.
Yeah, we just didn't play well.
Time of possession favored Navy 41-19, but the Middies gave up 464 yards of offense. Marshall was 6 for 6 in the red zone.
Yeah, you guys saw it, down 21-zip pretty quick. We had some bright spots here and there, but overall, not a good day for the defense.
Co-captain Kevin Brennan was a bright spot in the game. The safety snagged an interception and recovered a fumble. But it's a team game, and the team lost badly.
You're moving the ball. We didn't execute in the red zone.
There's not much time for the Middies to hang their heads with an all-important Commander-in-Chief's game this week.
That's all we talked about in the locker room. We got to get ready for Air Force. The biggest game of the year, and obviously to the last one at the end of the year. We can't feel sorry for ourselves. We got to get healthy. We got to lick our wounds and just come back and get ready to go.
As for Air Force, head coach Troy Calhoun knows even though Navy lost, the Falcons have their work cut out for them.
You can tell offensively. I mean, even the other day, just the way they move the football at will. This past Saturday, you look in between the 20s. They marched and made a ton of first downs, and I don't have the final numbers in front of me, but they had no problem moving the football.
Coach Calhoun added that Navy has 3 highly touted quarterbacks who all bring something different to the game. But which one will be under center Saturday? Ty Lavatai got the nod last week, but a leg injury turned the reins over to Xavier Arline, who, by the way, got his first Navy career touchdown last week. It was a rushing touchdown, not passing, but I'm sure he'll get one of those soon enough. Navy says about Lavatai, his status is uncertain, so there's really no telling who the starting quarterback will be against Air Force.
And the matchup between Air Force and Navy promises to be an exciting one. And Behind the Lines will be on the sidelines of that game, and we'll have a full report for you next week at this time. By the way, before we tape this, I had a chance to talk with former Air Force Falcons head coach Fisher DeBerry, and he said it doesn't matter what the record books say or what happened in the games before. When these two teams meet, it's all out, and you just don't know how that game's going to end up. But we'll have those details for you next week at this time. But when Behind the Lines returns, Aaron Summers will pay tribute to the victims of 9/11, some of which included Academy football players. We'll have that story when Behind the Lines returns.
Every day you have a gigantic place in your heart for those that serve. Those are our service members, but certainly the first responders that we have in this great country. And you play a game on 9/11, my goodness, it resonates to no end.
Just extremely honored to be able to play in that kind of stage on 9/11, just remembering all those people. Just extremely honored.
The words of Coach Calhoun and running back Brad Roberts of Air Force. The sentiments echoed throughout all of Academy football. Welcome back to Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report. I'm Aaron Summers. As the Falcons and the Middies prepare to take the field on Saturday, our nation will once again be reminded of the tragic events that took place 20 years ago, of the lives lost that day, and in the conflict that followed. September 11th, 2001 is a day that changed our nation and the lives of so many forever. The Service Academy men and women were quickly faced with the prospect of war. Here is the story of 4 Academy football players who lived that reality. The 2001 Academy football season started just like any other. Excitement and expectations for a new season.
We had a really good season before, even though we didn't win as many games as we wanted to. We had a lot of high expectations and a lot of excitement going into that season. And we really, our first week was against Cincinnati.
Army lost in the final seconds of that opener, but hopes remained high for a successful season. Navy started the 2001 season 0-2, and then everything changed.
Another plane just flew into the second tower. This has to be deliberate, folks.
I'll never forget walking into my room and watching the first tower collapse, and I was like, what is going on here? And right then everybody knew. They had freshmen out with their bayonets standing in front of the doors to guard stuff, and we had F-16s overhead. We had all this stuff going on, and we're all like, what is happening?
As news of the September 11th attack on the United States spread across the country, football took a back seat.
Coach Weatherby at the time, and he brought us in and started talking to us and saying, be resilient, we're not going to play this week, let's get through this. This is way more important than football right now. And we're all shocked because on the team, we're all getting ready to go serve. And what are we walking into? It's scary.
Football games that following weekend at every level, college and pro, were postponed as the nation grappled with a variety of emotions and how to respond.
We all knew what we were signing up for, but it became very real that day.
It drastically changed, everybody on our football team as well as the entire Corps of Cadets and what our trajectory would be then once we graduated from West Point.
I think I can speak for myself and a lot of our teammates. We wanted to go do something about it. We wanted to get involved.
We went immediately in a couple hours from a peacetime military with not too much conflict going on in the world to a nation at war.
As life began to move forward at the academies, the Black Knights and midshipmen tried to fight the emotions and keep their focus on the field.
I think people's minds were in a lot of different places. I know there were people that knew people in New York. There were people that knew people at the Pentagon.
We took football, I would say, even more seriously because it was an opportunity for us to better ourselves as people and as teammates, and to be ready to go one day in combat. Where else better than to be at West Point playing football to get ready to be on the fields of combat one day.
The 2001 season culminated in usual fashion in Philadelphia with the annual Army-Navy game. Navy heading into the matchup winless, Army with just 2 victories.
It's more than a football game. The Army and the Navy coming together as a representation of what's good in our country in pure competition, knowing what lies ahead. And so I'll never forget it. I get goosebumps thinking about it right now on that day, and helicopters fly over, and just what it really means for ourselves, for our families, for our country.
However, that year, the Army-Navy game represented even more, as the players battling on the gridiron would soon be brothers in arms, fighting for our country in a war against terror.
I think it took me 10 years to be removed to just realize the magnitude of that game for the nation. I think it was more of a patriotic symbolism of what right looks like in America, of 2 teams coming together that are average athletes, but they're out there to compete at the highest level and then get ready to truly be brothers in arms, to go recognize and go see what it means to fight on bigger fields.
I remember in one part of the game when I had my hand down on the field thinking, these guys are doing the same thing we are. And absolutely, you realize that special bond you have with the people on the other side of the field with you. And over the years, even when I was deployed in Iraq, I came across guys who I played with either with Army football or for Navy football. And the first thing you do is you start telling stories about the Army-Navy game, or who won or who lost. And so you absolutely do. You build a bond with people that lasts forever.
President George W. Bush visited each team's locker room before the game. Then, all eyes were on Army-Navy as quarterback Chad Jenkins led the Black Knights to a 26-17 win.
Right after that, I knew that my destiny as a football player was over. It expired at that point. And it was now time to shift gears and to kind of shift that focus of, okay, it was Army football. Now it's leading our future sons in combat. And that shift took place pretty quickly after that game, really.
2 midshipmen who played in that 2001 Army-Navy game later died in combat.
Ron Winchester, he played football with us, and he got killed in an IED explosion. And then J.P. Blecksmith got killed as well. He was a year later. And so I think the realization became real when that happened. We knew we were going to have to go to combat. We knew that. But when people that start dying, that makes it a lot different scene.
9/11 changed the lives of these cadets and midshipmen forever. Brothers in arms, forever bonded, forever remembered. For everyone at Behind the Lines, thank you to the men and women who have served or are currently serving. And those who have given their lives for this nation, their sacrifice will never be forgotten.
Welcome back to Behind the Lines. It was an aerial assault that lifted the Coast Guard Bears to a 16-0 shutout over the University of New England in both teams' season openers. Quarterback Jafari Wall launched a 62-yard bomb to James Duran in the first quarter and added a 1-yard plunge in the fourth to give head coach C.C. Grant his first career win. Wall ended the day with 262 yards passing. An emotional Coach Grant heaped a ton of praise on his whole squad, especially his defense.
When you start a new quarterback, especially under these circumstances where the kid didn't really get to play at all last year. He didn't play as a freshman. He was in prep school for a year. So basically, it's been 3 years since he started a football game. But for him to go 19 for 30, to get a touchdown, he ran for another one. You got to kind of tip your hat to him and say, you know what, he's going to get better. But the way he played on Saturday was more than I would say it was more than good.
And I've got to say, it's great to see the Coast Guard Bears back on the scoreboard. Congratulations, Coach Grant, on your first win as new head coach of the Coast Guard Bears. Hey, listen, that small bit of Coach Grant that you heard at the beginning of this segment is only a small part of a much longer conversation we had with Coach Grant about last weekend's game. The truth is, we're out of time for this show, but that doesn't mean you're going to miss out on the conversation, because we've got you covered. This show may be wrapping up, but the content on our YouTube channel isn't. Please make your way to our YouTube channel. That's Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report, and there you're going to find a lot of great stuff. You're going to find the entire Coach Grant interview. Aaron Summers is going to have an NFL update for you on the Academy players who are trying to make it pro. And we've also got Diane Roberts there, who's going to do a deep dive into the leadership and what it takes to be a leader of an Academy football team. Stay with us. We'll be right back. That's all we have for this episode of Behind the Lines, except for, as we close this out, we've got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal, you say your members are the mission, and we want to thank you for making us part of that mission, because thanks to you, we're able to bring these exciting games and the exciting stories behind these players, coaches, and fans to Academy football fans everywhere. And please join us next week for another edition of Behind the Lines, and we'll have an update for you on the CIC game between Air Force and Navy. And we'll also look ahead at the games being played on 9/18. That's it for now. We're out of time, but don't forget our YouTube channel, because we're never out of time on YouTube. We'll see you next time on Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report.